HRN listeners. As we celebrate our 15th year, we are deepening our commitment to giving voice to the next generation of food systems storytellers, and we need your help. Our internship and fellowship programs help activate new possibilities for underrepresented and underestimated young people through experiential journalism, audio engineering, and production training. Through these unique programs, HRN helps food equity stewards build essential workforce readiness skills that expand their potential and foster economic mobility. Please consider supporting these critical programs. And with a minimum donation, you can be entered to win a dinner for two at an amazing restaurant in one of 8 cities and tickets to a concert at a great venue in one of those cities. We have incredible partners across the country who have donated, as they also share our passion for helping to educate the next generation of food systems storytellers. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. And make sure you donate before March 31st. Thank you.
Today's program is brought to you by Heritage Foods USA, the nation's largest distributor of heritage breed pigs and turkeys. For more information, visit heritagefoodsusa.com.
Hi, this is Celia Kutcher, host of Animal Instinct, and you are listening to Heritage Radio Network, broadcasting live from Bushwick, Brooklyn. If you like this program, visit heritageradionetwork.org for thousands more.
All right. Thank you so much once again for tuning in to the Heritage Radio Network. We are coming to you live, as always, from the back of Roberta's Pizza here in Bushwick, Brooklyn. You're listening to The Farm Report. I'm your host, Erin Fairbanks. And today we are going to be taking a trip all around the world of ag. We've got a jam-packed show for you. At the top of the hour, we're going to be chatting with Craig Watts. Craig is a poultry farmer who works with Purdue down in North Carolina. So we're going to be learning a little bit more about him and his operation and some work he did recently with Compassion in World Farming as part of their Better Chicken initiative. Then in the second half of the show, we'll be getting on the line with Sam Filler. Sam is the Director of Industry Development. He works with Governor Cuomo's office here in New York State as part of the Empire State Development Plan. And we're going to be talking a little bit about beer and breweries and an upcoming event that the Heritage Radio Network is a media partner for, the 2015 Food and Enterprise. So more on that to come. So definitely stay tuned for the second half of the show. But without further ado, I want to welcome Craig on the line. Craig, it's so great to have you with us.
Hey, good to be here. I've been anticipating this, so I know we talked about it some time back, but here I am. We made it.
We made it. It's really happening. Craig, your and my paths crossed in a couple of different ways right around the same time. We were connected via Twitter with a New York farmer, and then I also saw you, of course, in the Compassion in World Farming video that came out earlier, or towards the end, I guess, of 2014 as part of their Better Chicken campaign. But before we get into that, I want to give folks a little bit of history, because you have been farming poultry birds for quite some time down in North Carolina. So why don't you give us a little sense of how you got into the business?
Oh, well, just real quick, we always farmed. We're a multi-generational farm. We have a land grant from the King of England for part of the farm, and I think it's right where the poultry houses sit. My dad had a heart attack when I was a teenager, so we kind of got out of farming actively, but I stayed in it in a research capacity, and then I was traveling a lot, so when I came back and got to do some research work in North Carolina, I got the bug to stay back on the farm. Naturally, the farming economy in the early 90s wasn't very good. The chicken companies came in. I call it the courting phase. I looked at it as my lifeline. So that's kind of the history and how I got into the business, or why I got into the business.
So can you tell us a little bit about that courting phase? I'm just curious, did they have, I would imagine maybe reps coming door to door talking about like, hey, grow chickens for us and this is what it'll look like? Or were they competing with Tyson or another major chicken producer? Or how did that kind of shake out on your end?
Oh, no, there was no competition. I mean, they were poultry was new in our area. There may have been a few turkey farms around. And basically, they put an ad in the paper, and I think the way it read was, "We need a few smart birds to raise our birds, and here's the number to call." And I did, and the guy came out, and he gave this little sales pitch. He gave these an income expense kind of projection thing, and numbers pulled out of fantasy land. So what they always said is the three biggest lies I've ever heard were sitting at that table that day. And so if you trust that and you go ahead and borrow the money and sign the contract, you're done. It's a one and done. You'll sign whatever else they'll bring you.
So as far as, obviously you're becoming what we call a contract grower. So you say, I will bring in birds from you, I will raise them on my farm, and then I will give them back to you, and you get paid based on what?
Weight, poundage.
Poundage, okay. So, and then you are paying, your expenses include the actual, live birds that come into you, the care for them while the time that they're on your farm, and then you transport them, or someone comes and picks them up for you?
Oh, no. The company owns the birds. I raise 720,000 birds a year without ever owning a chicken.
Okay.
They actually have title to that flock. They actually bring them. They own the feed. They supply that, and then they come and pick them up and transport them out. I do everything in between. I mean, the operational expenses of the farm, and any mortgage associated with that farm. That's what I take care of.
And so when you got started, how many birds were you raising initially, if you can remember, in those first couple batches?
I don't remember exactly. We started with 2 houses. I now have 4. It really hadn't changed a whole lot. I would say 30,000 a house, 10, and it's basically the same thing now. That's not really changed a whole lot.
And remind me again, you've been farming with Purdue for how long?
22 years. Started in August of 1992.
So from your end, because you sit in this really interesting position of having been with the company for a really long time, and I think for most folks, the kind of structure around how poultry in particular is produced in this country is something that many of us are just learning about. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about what you've seen kind of stay the same or change over the course of the last 20 years, as far as, obviously costs increase and, pricing changes, like that goes without saying. But have you noticed any other kind of industry shifts or kind of percentage of like risk or payment shifts that have happened? Or can you give us a kind of a lay of the land?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, that's a lot of land to cover, but just the biggest thing to me that has changed is how image conscious these companies have become. And the fact is, logistically, the reality of what I do and what I see every day has changed very little. So reality and image are very, very far apart, where 20 years ago, I didn't feel that way. Farmers and then they're hurting in this business now. We went basically 15 years without a pay increase. You eat 15 years worth of inflation. You do the math. That there are a lot of bankruptcies, a lot of farms that have been foreclosed on just for the simple reason that that a company made a bad decision and they overproduced and they had to shut plants down. And it's there's just a lot of people hurting. Now, as far as the chickens itself, genetically certainly they've changed a lot. We can grow a bird a lot bigger, a lot quicker now. I think I was maybe a 3.8 pound chicken at 42 days. I can get up 4.5 pound chicken in 38 or 39 now, and that varies from company to company, but it's changed that much. As far as the relationships with the company and communication with the company, when we started, it really wasn't that bad. We kind of felt like we were all learning because everything was new. Now communication, it doesn't even exist. I've had several meetings with Purdue on some of the issues that were brought up in that video, and they come and they meet and they get up and there's never no follow-up. And, that to me is just disrespectful, considering, how integral we are to this business.
Sure. And are there other folks kind of in your general area that you kind of, talk shop with who are also producers for Purdue, or are you kind of a one-man show in the region?
Oh no, I'm the guy everybody's watching, but nobody wants to be seen with. If that makes sense. Yeah, I've got great support down here, and then naturally with the internet, I've got friends in every state that grow for every major poultry company there is. Tyson's, Pilgrim's, Sanderson, and it's all the same story. I mean, there's a little tweak here and there to it, but it's basically the same song spinning. So we've got good support, but there's just not a whole lot of us. I think the last count I had was like there's 25,000 farmers who do what I do. It's hard to rattle sabers, $700,000-800,000 in debt, with that few people.
Sure. So, obviously something's working for you though, right? Because, I mean, you've been, your farm's still in business. You've been around for 22 years. I think folks would assume like, well, if you had an issue with things, you would just leave or do something different or not work with Purdue anymore. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, how many people get up and go to jobs every day that they don't like? You do what you got to do, because you got other obligations that are more important. Walking away to me is not an option. I'm wired, if I quit, I fail. I'm in a much better position than most poultry farmers are. I don't have a lot of debt. Yes, I could walk away tomorrow, but why should I walk away? Why shouldn't they change? Why shouldn't they be what they say they are? And that's kind of the fight I want to fight and see on out to the end.
So, to me, it sounds a little, I would be, if I'm in your shoes, a little bit nervous. How are you working to kind of like protect yourself as you're kind of taking on this public profile around the issues that you're seeing on the farm and the things that you're looking to kind of advocate for change around?
Sure. The Government Accountability Project in D.C., kind of took me under their wing, and they've been great to work with. So as far as that kind of whistleblower type protection, I'm as safe as a baby in his mama's arms. I'm in good hands.
Well, let's circle back a little bit to some of the nuts and bolts of the production system on your farm. So obviously you're not raising 700,000 plus birds all at once. So can you give us a quick run through of the cycle of life from when the chicks hit your farm to when they leave?
Oh, sure. It's I have four barns. They're 40 by 500, 20,000 square feet apiece. There's 30,000 chicks delivered in each house, each flock, which gives me 120,000 every batch. And then we usually turn 6 times a year, so that's where the 720,000 comes from.
Got it. And so you are getting your measurement criteria for the paycheck that you're getting at the end of those batches is based on total bird weight and total bird number, or just straight weight?
Oh no, it's a complicated thing. If you really that book, The Meat Racket, guy named Christopher Leonard wrote it about Tyson, but it rings true with all integrators. It's a tournament system, and basically it's a cost system, and it's pounds of chicken versus pounds of feed is what it boils down to. If you can grow a 4-pound bird with 8 pounds of feed, and I can grow a 4-pound bird with 7 pounds of feed, I win, that kind of thing. But the thing is, you have no control over the different variables. I mean, you got 120,000 animals, and they're not all going to be genetically identical. I mean, you can have a dog that has 5 puppies, and they're not going to be all genetically identical. So there's some serious flaws in it, but that's the standard of the industry. The ranking system, tournament system. I don't know of anything else. I've heard it called a rigged lottery. I think that describes it pretty well.
Called a what lottery?
A rigged lottery.
A rigged lottery.
Yeah.
So kind of taking and I just want to set this aside for a moment here, taking the financial component out of it.
Sure.
What are your issues with the system as it stands now?
The major issue here certainly is disrespect for the farmer and what he brings to this industry, because the capital that this industry has, the farmer with the buildings he owns, that is half of the capital of this industry. Okay, take into account that collateral he had to put up to get a loan for those buildings. I mean, we've got more skin in the game than they do, and yet somehow we are the bottom of the totem pole. It's and then I see a lot of hoodwinking of the consumer. And my God, I didn't build this business; the consumer built this business. And if I see that happening and I don't say something, then I'm an enabler, and to me, that's worse than a perpetrator. So that's like the two major things, selling something we're not, and just absolutely keeping a farmer on a treadmill of debt and never seeing any return. I'll describe it to you this way. You start climbing a mountain, and you look under your feet, and you realize you're walking up a mountain of BS, and you get to the top, and there's that rose, and you pick that rose off, and you go to smell it, then you've lost your sense of smell. And that's kind of the way it is. So you tumble down the other side of the mountain, and you look up, and there's another one twice as big. So it's just like a never-ending thing.
So
the promise just never happens.
So, like, looking at the kind of financial and the debt side of things, how does one plan for retirement or, your kid's college education or kind of the next steps in life or, when you are, looking to not be producing chickens anymore? What is the game plan? What is the exit strategy? I mean, how does the team at Purdue explain it to folks, or what have you seen around in the industry?
Oh, there is no exit. I mean, they're not giving financial advice on this. I mean, they're more than happy to dip into your bank account, but they're not going to. I just did it myself. There's certainly self-employed pensions and stuff. I'm not a financial advisor. I mean, I just know what I did for me, and then of course my wife teaches school. So we max out her 401k, and she's got a pension also. So I mean, we're good, but everybody's just not that fortunate. I wish I could answer that question, but I'm just not a financial.
Yeah, no, and I'm not asking you to speak for everyone. Just from your experience, I'm curious, like what you've been hearing or how you guys dealt with it.
Yeah, I know people that have to pay their own insurance. They're definitely hurting, and they're not even thinking about retirement because it's hard to take your nose up off the wheel sometimes and see what's better for the long term when you're thinking, my God, I got to get to Friday,
Sure. Kind of dealing with the day-to-day. So, well, on the other end of things, and you're talking about feeling like you're selling consumers on an image of something that you're not. So what does that mean?
Well, I mean, if you look at these labels, which is that's really what brought the lady Leah Garces from Compassion and I together, was that label. We were coming down. She was coming down Elm Street, and I was coming down Main Street, and that's where we crossed paths. And it's the USDA, whatever it is. Anyway, it talks about cage free. Well, there's no meat bird in the United States of America that's ever been raised cage free. At least not in my 22 years. So it means nothing. It's industry standards. No hormones or steroids. Means nothing. That stuff was done away with in the 70s. It's meaningless. What were the humanely raised? What does that mean? I mean, that sounds a little subjective. And the funny thing is, they had to remove that from the label through a court decision, but they'll still say that it's humanely raised. I saw a label the other day that said gluten-free chicken. I'm not kidding. I don't even know. I didn't realize that was an issue, but it was on there.
Right.
Oh, golly, what else is on those labels? I just think they should say our chickens have 2 feet, then we could verify something.
So
but
I just want to
clarify. It's just meaningless, and they're preying on consumer trends, and they're not going all in. They're putting a meaningless label on something, trying to convince that consumer that they're getting something better when they're not getting anything more than what's sitting beside it for half price.
So I want to just touch on the cage-free thing a little bit more. So in general, birds. So the cage thing is really coming more from the egg-laying industry. That's the separate.
Yes, ma'am. That's it. And there's that misconception. The steroids came from a misconception for I think it was the bovine growth hormone they were giving cattle. And it just kind of carried over, and so they jumped on it and made a mint with it.
So what about when folks are talking about subtherapeutic antibiotics, where within the animal's feed ration there's kind of low dose antibiotics? That's not an issue in the poultry industry?
Well, certainly it has been. Actually, our complex here in Dillon, we are totally antibiotic free. Now there has been some growing pains, but certainly that was what was happening in the past. I mean, and there again, that's just capitalizing on a consumer trend. You know, if there was no uproar about the superbugs, we would still be doing the same thing we were doing. But a lot of the companies are still doing subtherapeutic antibiotics. I think it was the guy who did the Reuters thing here about a couple of months ago. Whenever he covered that pretty good, that they'll say, well, we're not using medically important antibiotics in our feed, and then he goes and gets the feed ticket, and the feed ticket is stamped with penicillin. I would say that's kind of medically important.
Yeah, I'd say.
And it really needs, just a federal investigation, just, clean it up and make it above board. But these guys, they swing a pretty big stick.
So one of the other things that you hear a lot in kind of popular media around the poultry industry is talking about the genetics of the bird, how the birds have been bred to, have large white breasts, and they don't have the kind of skeletal strength to really support the kind of rate of growth and the volume of growth. And I'm curious, because you've been farming for so long, have you seen a change in kind of the rate that the birds will put on weight, but also kind of the overall health of birds? Like, because you're not really controlling the genetics. It's not like you have options there, but in kind of the aggregate, are you seeing that shift that people are talking about it, or are we just starting to hear about it?
Oh, no. I've got a front row seat. It's 22 years ago. I mean, you didn't even think anything about it. And then, you can probably go to the National Chicken Clown website or Cant or whatever it is, and they kind of track that stuff. 50s we were doing this, 60s they were growing this fast. But what has happened is I call when I go in there and see at the end of a flock now, it looks like if you stuck 2 toothpicks in a grape. That's the only way I can describe it to you. And the birds are designed to do exactly what they're doing: get up, take a bite, take a drink, sit back down. That's what they want them to do. And 22 years ago, we had windows, or people call them windows, but they're actually curtains. We rolled up and down. They got natural air, they got fresh sunlight. The birds just run up down the house, happy as they could be. You don't see that anymore. There's just not much movement at all. You think, well, golly, 22 years and a half a pound of chicken, is that a big deal? Well, yeah, if you on the front row, and plus it's certainly a big deal to these companies.
Sure.
But,
well, yeah, you're looking at percentages there.
What,
Yeah.
Ma'am?
No, I was just saying, like, if you're looking at kind of the overall weight of a chicken as a percentage, a half pound is a huge jump. Like, if I gained half a pound, no one would notice.
Right.
I hope.
You probably would.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Not in my line of work. I can't be too sensitive there. So, see, I guess the thing that when consumers are at the grocery store and they're buying a chicken that has some of these labels, the hormone and antibiotic free, cage free, they have an image of the life of that bird left before it got to that grocery store or got to their dinner plate. And I'm curious, how big of a jump is it between a pasture-raised bird and the type of growing system that you have? Is that something you could transition to? And from a cost perspective, as consumers, what should we be thinking about with relation to what is the real difference between those two types of approaches with regards to producing poultry?
Oh gosh, I'm not even qualified to even jump on that. It's night and day. That I do know. Is it an option? Sure. I've got pastures. That's not a problem. I'm thinking what we're going to have to wind up doing is somewhere in the middle of the road. There's upsides to the facilities.
Right.
If it's Africa hot, I can keep them cool, and if it's Antarctica cold, I can keep them warm. It's just it's the stuff that's out of my control that's the issue. And see, that's the other thing. That's what's got to happen. The farmer's got to get control of his own farm. I can't. Maybe there's some out there that like to be told what to do, how to do it, and how many times a day to do it, but I don't know any. And that guy who's making those decisions is 1,000 miles away. He doesn't have any affection for this farm or any affection for farming, which I do. That's like a key issue. Leah could tell you more about the pasture raised stuff than I can. I just know the guy makes $3 a pound and I make 5 cents. So it sounds pretty good.
Right.
But I haven't gone into the to the logistics of it yet.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the thing when you're looking at kind of for consumers, when we're thinking about our values as they relate to food, I think it's not, there are, especially when we're dealing with kind of livestock and poultry, there are animal welfare concerns, but the economic realities of that are also part of that equation. So I think there is a need, from where I sit, to have a middle ground and also to create opportunities for operations like yours to have a space for transition.
Sure.
And you're not going from like 0 to 60, maybe you want to go from 0 to 30. But like, how do we, like, from our value set, make decisions that are kind of rational, where everybody is being taken care of in that system?
Yeah, I think, you're not going to, you got to hit it in the middle of the road. It is so polarizing. And, that was the thing that Lee and I tried to hopefully, and will continue to show is, we're from two different worlds. When you see everything out, really we have a lot more in common than we do different. She's seen a lot different perspectives, because a lot of times when groups like hers demand things from companies, well, it runs right through the company and trickles down to the farmer. We can't stand anymore. And so she is seeing that now, which is great. And then I see some things from her side too. But we can't forget our mid-sized family farms out here that are carrying a lot of the weight. It's exciting to see young people come in, and it's exciting to see them go into the small organic stuff. But that's not the only farming that's done in this country. So we've got to support us. Everybody's got to have their share of the pie and their share of the support.
So, was it a hard decision to make the video with Compassion in World Farming?
It was interesting. It just kind of worked out that way. It was we met through a mutual colleague, and it just we talked on the phone a few times, exchanged a few emails. She came down and we sat here at home and talked, and there was just a connection there, and I can't explain it. So no, it was not hard to do that, and I thought with her organization I'd never heard of, that would have been a good thing, and that way I could kind of control what happened, nothing leaked out, because it had to be a blindside or it didn't work. And then she and I have become good friends since. So it's my intention to develop her sense of humor before the next year is out.
Well, so folks who haven't had a chance to check out the video, they can definitely find it on the Compassion in World Farming website as part of their Better Chicken campaign. But kind of the takeaway from the video was, touring the farm, chatting with you, and talking about, from an animal welfare standpoint, is this the type of chicken we want to be seen produced? And so I'm wondering, what's been the feedback from folks within the industry and outside of the industry? Are you getting, slaps on the back, or, punches in the gut, or what's the kind of feedback been after the video went live?
Well, naturally, the industry punched me in the gut, but the lobbyists and the general industry rags and that kind of stuff. It was a farmer's fault, blah blah blah. What they didn't do, they failed to not check my record, which I'm well above average in their tournament scheme. That flock finished second place out of 9 or 10 farms or whatever. So, that kind of stuff doesn't really worry me, because, those opinions are bought and paid for. They wouldn't know the truth. It was a steel-toed boot to kick them in the teeth. But the only thing I'm worried about is the farming community supporting me, and so far so good. Not all of them, naturally, but most. That's they say if you get 3 farmers to agree on something and sit them in a room, you have to shoot 2 of them. We're kind of independent and hard-headed, but I've gotten really good support. So, and that's the only thing I can. My peers, and that's all I'm worried about.
Sure. Well, and I am hopeful, honestly, if there's folks from the Purdue team out there listening, would love to have them on the show as well to talk about the operation more generally. Because I think that is the way we take steps in a direction that we're all feeling better about, is increasing that transparency in the food supply. So, Craig, I want to thank you so much for taking some time to join us today. It's been really interesting getting a chance to connect with you.
Okay.
For folks who want to learn more about Craig and his work, definitely check out the video, but you can also find him on Twitter. He is at Craig with a C, WCA Farms 92, for his thoughts. And lots of jokes there. Definitely check him out. Hang tight. In the second half of the show, we are being on the line with Sam Filler, the Director of Industry Development, talking a little bit about beer and brewing in New York State. So hold on. We'll be right back.
Heritage Radio Network is a proud media partner of Food and Enterprise. Founded in 2013, Food and Enterprise is a social impact, mission-driven event dedicated to promoting understanding and collaboration amongst multiple stakeholders, farmers, entrepreneurs, consultants, funders, and investors who aim to finance a better local food system. After 2 years hosted under the auspices of the Food Book Fair, the 2015 conference has grown to be a 3-day event, beginning with a popular entrepreneurship clinic and ending with a 3rd annual pitch completion. The 2015 Food and Enterprise Conference is organized and administered by the Northeast Foodshed Finance Alliance and Slow Money New York City, in conjunction with the NRDC, Community Food Funders, and the Young Farmers Alliance. This is all taking place February 27th through March 1st at Summit at Industry City in Brooklyn, New York. For more information, visit www.foodandenterprise.com.
Hello out there, it's Steve Jenkins. I'm with Fairway Markets. White Leghorn, Red Wattle, Bourbon Red, Navajo Churro. Well, these aren't names you're likely to hear at a Fairway butcher counter or any other counter today, but before the rise of factory farming, you would have. And at Heritage Foods USA, you still do. Heritage Foods USA exists to promote genetic diversity, small family farms, and a fully traceable food supply. You see, we believe the best way to help a family farmer is to buy from them. And Heritage Foods is honored to represent a network of family farmers and artisanal producers whose work presents an immeasurable gift to our food system and to biodiversity. The meat we celebrate, whether it's heritage turkey, Japanese steaks, Berkshire pork, or Navajo churro lamb chops, is the righteous kind from healthy animals of sound genetics that have been treated humanely and allowed to pursue their natural instincts. It's a simple fact. Animals raised according to this philosophy taste better. And as we like to say, you have to eat them to save them. Visit us at heritagefoodsusa.com for more information.
Hello, this is Mark Ladner from Del Posto, and you're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
All right, we are back and joined on the line by Sam Filler, the Director of Industry Development, working with Cuomo's office. Sam, thanks for taking some time to join us.
Thanks for having me.
So we are going to talk a little bit today about your upcoming panel with Food and Enterprise, which we heard a little bit about during the break. But you're going to be looking at a panel called Anatomy of a Deal, focused on the New York State brewers and brewer community, moderated by Jennifer Grossman over at the NRDC. So can you talk a little bit about, why the governor's interest, why the focus on New York State beverages? What's the word there?
Well, I think his focus on the craft beverage industry has to do with the fact that it hits on a lot of aspects of our state's economy. New breweries that open up create jobs. They buy raw agricultural products from our state farms, so you're supporting farm labor and our great farms in upstate New York and in Long Island. And then also these businesses help generate tourism. And so many of our breweries are along wine trails, or they form their own trails. And so it's really, there's a lot of benefits to supporting this industry. Most of all, they make really great products.
So kind of in your role overseeing this work, do you get to drink a lot of good beer and cider?
I do get to do a lot of tastings on behalf of the governor to make sure they represent the best qualities in New York State.
So give us some highlights. What are you anticipating the conversation to look like as part of the Anatomy of a Deal panel with the Food and Enterprise conference?
Through my work going across the state and meeting with the brewing industry, there's a lot of concerns about procuring the raw materials from New York State. We only recently have started reinvesting in our hops industry, and we started to put more focus on helping farmers grow malt barley that's of a quality that brewers like. So I think that's a big part of the concern of brewers across the state is how are they going to get a quality product at a reasonable price that is going to help them remain competitive and make a great product.
Yeah, it's funny. I did a couple of shows about 2 years ago looking at beer as an agriculture product, which is for me was totally belated glimpse of the obvious because it's hops, it's the grain and it's water, and that's pretty much it. But I feel like there is a little bit of a disconnect when you're out at the pub getting a pint that, this product actually was kind of grown and stewarded by someone. But usually those relationships are separate, the farmers and the brewers and then the distributors. So I think too, you must be talking to a lot of different parties, and the kind of coordination and communication must be a big part of what's challenging about this work.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are, the governor signed the Farm Brewery Act, or the Farm Brewery Law, that created this new license that encourages brewers to use New York State sourced ingredients. So there's farm breweries out there that are growing their own hops. There's a great example, Farmhouse Malt in Newark Valley. They are a malt house, a farm brewery, and they have a really great tasting room. So, and then you have big brewers like FX Matt that makes the Saranac line of beers, or even Brooklyn Brewery, that they're not necessarily farm breweries, but they're establishing relationships with the agricultural community in New York State, so they can also make a New York State-focused beer as part of their lineup.
And how do you, one of the things I always find so interesting when you have a business or a state agency get involved in, agriculture production, especially when you're looking at, transition opportunities where farmers might be looking to, grow a new crop, or the production line might include some value-added needs. So in the case of brewing, we're looking at malt houses. And when you're sitting down kind of in my head, you're in your magical kind of brainstorming session, trying to figure out what's the right timeline, what's the right percentage, how do we incentivize this correctly? How do you kind of put together the teams of advisors and the people to help make sure that you and the government's team are making the right decisions that are kind of in line with appropriate kind of timelines and the reality of the craft beverage industry?
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because on Monday we're having our second meeting of the Governor Cuomo's craft beer working group that's comprised of prominent brewers from across the state, some of our malt houses, Cornell researchers, and other professionals in the field. This was announced, I think, June or July of last year, and we had a meeting over the summer. So, we're consistently in dialogue with the industry. I work very closely with the State Liquor Authority and the Department of Ag and Markets, and, we're aware of the challenges that exist out there to, make all these connections happening, make sure that we're implementing the right policies that are responsive to the industry and what they need. And I think that's why you've seen, in November, the governor signed the Craft New York Act, which helped liberalize more of the state liquor laws. And, one big benefit has been that anyone who's a farm licensee in the state, including wineries, cideries, and breweries, and also distilleries, can now sell by the glass from their tasting room, which has been a huge boon for the industry.
So can you give us a little sense, just in broad strokes, of kind of the history around the craft beverage space in New York? Obviously, this is something that I think we here at the station have been hearing quite a bit about in the last couple of years, but was there kind of a turning point or a moment where the team was kind of like, oh, this is something that like we should be paying more attention to and really investing in because it's something unique to New York?
I think it's a couple factors. The Cuomo family has a history of supporting the craft beverage industry. Governor Cuomo's father helped create the New York Wine and Grape Foundation in 1985, which helped our grape industry recover and our wine industry start to grow. And I think that Governor Cuomo recognizes a similar benefit to, as I mentioned earlier, that when you invest in this value-added industry, there's tertiary benefits to our ag industry, our tourism industry, and we have some great machinery producers that are producing the tanks and the various equipment that our brewers need to produce their product. Just to give you a quick timeline, in 1976, the Farm Winery Act was created, and that's what allowed us to have more of these small, family-sized wineries become established. Then the Wine and Grape Foundation was established in 1985, and that helped give even more energy to the industry. And so I think, Governor Cuomo has now created a farm brewery license, a farm cidery license, and I think, that really it's tapping into that legacy that we have as a state in promoting craft beverages, but also, I think at this time in history, obviously buying locally sourced products are, what's popular, and consumers are really focused on knowing more about where their product comes from, and that's why there's a really great interest in craft products, because they're of a very high quality, but also there's a personal touch to them. You can establish a relationship with the owner of that brewery and get to know them and get to know their product and be a participant in their, future things that they're developing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's something definitely we've been following here at the station for quite some time. We've got the, Jimmy Carbone, who hosts Beer Sessions Radio, following the craft beer movement. I think they're coming up on their 5th year of programming. We have been longtime sponsors, media sponsors of the New York City Cider Week. So it's nice to see, so many different people coming to the table. And as consumers, kind of frontline consumers, folks down here in the city, I think, one of the main things we can be doing is, asking our waiters and bartenders where our beer is coming from and using that moment to buy New York State. But you guys are also doing some support for folks to kind of get the word out. I know you announced some funds around marketing and promotion and agritourism or industry tourism. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Sure. So Governor Cuomo has now hosted 2 beer, wine, spirits, and cider summits to really highlight and bring attention to the industry. And part of the last summit that was hosted in April of 2014, he announced a $4 million commitment to the industry. And that $4 million breaks down into $1 million for advertising, a $2 million marketing match grant program, and a $1 million tourism promotion grant program. The $1 million in advertising has been split evenly among the 4 beverage sectors. So I'm working directly with the trade associations for beer, wine, spirits, and cider to help them better market themselves and really tell the story about what makes New York state-produced products of high excellence. And so, I know New York City Beer Week is coming up. We're going to have some exciting initiatives launched in line with New York City Beer Week, and so stay tuned to that. And we're helping the Distillers Association launch a new website. So that's the advertising money. The marketing, $2 million marketing match money, essentially the idea is for every dollar that is spent on marketing activities, the state will match it with $1. A good example of this is the New York City Beer Week. So, because we have this grant money available, the brewing industry has been able to purchase some more marketing and advertising materials and advertise on radio and in print. So we're helping and supporting them to do that. And then the tourism promotion money is really, you think about the wine trails across the state. Some of them, they need to invest in radio advertisements or signage on their trails. So this is money that's, put aside for that. So, there's a great initiative in the Adirondacks called the Adirondack Craft Beverage Trail, and they're the type of group that we would look to help support with this money.
That's awesome. Sam, thank you so much for joining us. And I have to shout a peep out there. If folks are looking to advertise on radio, please think of the Heritage Radio Network. We would love to be and continue to be a part of that work. But it's been really great to get a little bit of the background and the details, and look forward to seeing you later in the month at Food and Enterprise.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. So, folks, if you want to find out more about the upcoming Food and Enterprise Conference, definitely check them out, www.foodandenterprise.com. Want to send a big thanks to my guests, Sam Filler and Craig Watts, for another great episode of The Farm Report. Shout out to Liz Smith, who's engineering for me over there in the booth. Want to let you know that this show, like all 39 of our weekly programs, is available for free. Definitely visit our website, www.heritageradionetwork.org. You can peruse all kinds of great shows every week. We are a member-supported nonprofit, so if you believe in our work, please consider clicking that donate tab and becoming a member today. Also, check us out on iTunes or Stitcher Smart Radio. You can subscribe to the show. It'll get delivered to your iPhone or Android or phone of choice or computer of choice every week, fresh and ready to go for you. Thanks so much for tuning in, and keep on listening.
Thanks for listening to this program on heritageradionetwork.org. You can find all of our archived programs on our website or as podcasts in the iTunes Store by searching Heritage Radio Network. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at heritage_radio. You can email us questions anytime at info@heritageradionetwork.org. Heritage Radio Network is a 501c3 nonprofit. To donate and become a member, visit our website today. Thanks for listening.